In many of our business problem, we might need to implement the conditional approval. If I'm saying conditional approval, I'm referring towards, let's say I need to send an approval request to some set of users, maybe 5 or 10, and based on some condition, let's say I need just five half people to just respond on it, and then I need to perform some further actions. That's the meaning of my conditional approval here. So in many of the business scenario, we might need to implement that, but by default in approval process, we get either two options. One, either our approval process would wait for all the approvers to respond, or if only one approver from the set of approvers respond to the particular request, then it would process it. But what about the middle part? If we just need half people to respond on it, and then we need further actions to be performed. Hi everyone, this is Prashant Chaudhary. I welcome you all to my channel Classy Power. In this video, we are going to implement a business scenario where we will set up a approval conditional approval process in Power Automate. So I'll just try to make this video a little quick so that I can cover maximum things inside this video, and then we will build it from the scratch. Okay, so before implementing it, you need to understand that whenever we raise an approval, all the data of the approvals would store inside the dataverse table. Okay, approval would be stored, and then it would raise a request, approval requests, and then once the approval request is raised, based on the response that the approval would give, it would be stored inside the approval response table. So we are going to utilize three different tables in order to implement our conditional approval process. So first part is to send the approval request to some users. So how we can do that? I'm just taking you to my Power Automate screen, and then we will create an instant flow that would be conditional. I'm using conditional approval CA and send request. I'm using manual trigger for now. You can configure it as per your need. Then I'm using some, let's say, compose. That compose would hold all the people email addresses. Let's say I'm using testabc.com with a semicolon, prashant at the rate abc.com. I'm just using some invalid email addresses, but in your case, you can use some valid email addresses. Okay. Then I'm using another action that is my approval. So I will use create an approval, and here I need to select which type. So I will proceed with approve reject, because I just want to give only two options for the user. Either they can approve it or they can reject it. I'll use everyone must approve. The moment I click on this, I need to provide some title. Let's say I will use conditional approval request POC, and then I'm using some dynamic content that would be my UTC, just to separate out each approval request. Okay, to whom I need to assign this? I need to assign this to dynamic content, to my compose output. Okay, whatever whosoever email address I'm writing inside my compose, I need to send this approval request to those people. Now I'm just saving this. So my first part is ready. It would get all the email address into the compose, and it would send the approval request. Okay, I'm just duplicating the screen. Now my another part is I need to fetch the approvals based on the response it would get for each approval request. Okay, I'll go back, and then this time my trigger would not be the instant one. This time my trigger would be the automated cloud flow. Why? Because Whenever a user would respond to a particular approval request, it would create a record inside my approval response table. That table would be sitting inside my dataverse within the same environment. Okay, so I will use condition approval, fetch request, fetch response, and I need to use dataverse. So I will use when an item, and I should have a dataverse when an item dataverse. Okay, can I use dataverse directly? Okay, I can use when an item is added, modified, or deleted. Create. So this particular flow would be fetching what type of response it is getting. Okay, now I will add pass the parameters. The change type I'm just using added because whenever the user would respond, only in that case it would create a record inside my approval response table. Approval response table responses. Okay, these are the some predefined table that exist inside your environment where from you can analyze or you can see. Then I'm just using scope as organization. Then I'm using another action that would be my initialize variable, and that initialize variable would be, let's say, id, approval id. Okay, so just try to understand that each response would come for a particular approval. Okay, if I just try to show you from here, whenever I create an approval, it would create a record into my approval table. Then based on the email addresses that I have found or to whom I have assigned that approval request, it would create records inside my approval request table. And based on the response that it got from the approvals, it would create a record inside my approval response. So my approval would be my parent for both two, approval request and my approval responses table. Okay, so in order to get the responses, how many response we got for the particular approval, I need to fetch the approval id from my approval response table. So I'm going to use that one. If I use approval, here you can see for the approval I have a approval type and I have a approval id index. Approval id index, from here you can get the id of my approval. Okay, approval id index. If you just try to look into this particular table, you would find that in the approval id index you would get the id of your approval. Okay, so I'll use this id. Then I will use another action, and this action would be my list rows. List rows data was table again. Now I need to fetch the total response that the system got for the particular approval. Okay, so what I'll do, I just use my response table. I'll use approval responses. Then I need to use some filter rows. What type of condition I will pass here? First, I need only those responses which is associated with my particular approval. So I need approve. It needs to be compared with my approval ID. Another is I need only those response whose response column contains approve. Okay, so I need to pass two separate conditions. So how I can pass this? Through the filter rows, I'll use some, if I have, let me check if I already have something or not. Okay, so I already got this schema name of these two columns which exist inside my approval response table. One is my approval index ID. So I'm going to use this one, control V, equals to, I need it to be equal to with whom? With my variable, because my variable stores my approval ID. Okay, so I'll use approval ID, and then I need to fetch only the responses which contains approve. So that's my column name that contains the responses inside my approval table. I use this one, again equals, this time it would be equals to approve. Okay, now good. Now I need a compose. No, 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 not this one. How I can delete this? I don't need this one. Okay, what I need to do, I can use directly the conditions. Okay, and my condition would be how many rows are there which is coming from my list rows action. Again, come back. I will use my length function, and then from the dynamic content, I'll use the value so that I will get what how many responses we got. So if I need to compare it with my, let's say, three responses, if I got three approved from any of my approval requests, I need some certain actions to be performed. So I use the length to be equals to 3, and then inside my true I'm using some, let's say, teams message, post a message inside my team, post a message, post message inside my team, and then I need it to be chat with the flowbot, and then count is reached. I can pass to whom I need to send this, so I'm just using some prashant at the rate abc.com. Just use some valid. Okay, right now I'm just passing some invalid things. Also I need, as it is triggering for every response that it will get. Okay, but I need it, this trigger, this automation to be triggered only if it got approve as a response. Okay, so that I can somewhere limit the executions of this particular flow. So into this one, I just go to the setting, and then I can pass some trigger conditions. Then my trigger conditions would be, I already copied it somewhere. I'm using that the response should be equals to contains approve. Then only this particular flow would be triggered. Otherwise, no. I will paste these things inside my description so that you can use it directly. So my flow is ready. I'm not going to run this because I have access only to one user account, but I have tested with my colleagues and it worked well. So in order to recall, we created two separate flow. One flow is to send the approval request to some users. Another flow is triggering based on the response it is getting, and then it would fetch the approval ID, and then it would filter all responses that contains approve and belongs to the particular approval. And then once it got some count, it is sending a post message inside my teams. You can use any other process or any other action that you would need based on your requirement. So that's how we can create the approval, conditional approval process inside our Power Automate. Just try to implement it in your business scenarios. And if you struck somewhere, please reach out to me, either to my LinkedIn or to my YouTube. I just try to help you out. I hope you like this video. Thank you all. Thanks for watching this video.